Hello, everybody, and welcome to Clearing the Bases, the podcast where we step up to the plate and dive deep into the world of youth baseball. I'm your host, Jimmy Filangieri. On this show, we discuss all things related to the preparation and development of youth baseball players, coaches, and yes, even parents. So sit back, settle in, and get ready to hear from some of the greatest baseball minds out there. I really hope that you enjoyed the first two shows because we're going to hit you with another one right now, which is just as powerful as the first two. You got to admit, you heard from the people on the first two shows, and there's just a wealth of knowledge there. There's a wealth of understanding, what we're trying to do as youth coaches, how we can make the environment more enjoyable for everybody involved. We talk about being a lifelong learner, and, I'm sure you could tell that everybody that's been on these shows is a lifelong learner. We never feel like we know everything about what we're doing because I don't think anybody could ever know that. And, it's just so important to understand that you can always get better. Just like a player, the player can always get better. He could put in more work. He could put in more time, to increase his skill level, to increase his mental performance, there's just so many things that players can do. Well, coaches have to do the same thing. And I really know that the people that are involved with the Youth Summit understand this. And that's why we're there. We all are striving to be the best that we can be, because if we're the best coaches we can be, then the players are going to be the best players that they can be. It's only common sense. So anyway, this show, we're going to bring on 3 more guys from the summit. So that'll make a total of 11 people that you've heard from that have attended the Youth Baseball Summit. And, these guys, Jeff, Steve, Paul, again, some of the greatest baseball minds out there. But before we jump into it, let's hear from the 6-Tool app.
For baseball coaches like you, every game brings measurable progress. However, game time isn't the time for trial and error learning. Instead, have a proactive approach. Use 6-Tool, the best baseball player development tool on the market. We provide a platform to level up your coaching strategy by helping you to quickly identify and address your players' knowledge of the game. By using our easy-to-implement interactive player quizzes, you can assess position-specific issues, overall baseball IQ, and much more. Win more games and develop better overall baseball players with effective off-the-field training. Visit us at 6-tool.com. 6-Tool. Get ahead in the game.
We're going to continue with our 3-part series centered on the conversations, challenges, and solutions that emerged from the 2025 ABCA Youth Baseball Summit. This series is about bringing voices together, people who are actively shaping the youth game to better understand where youth baseball is headed and how we can continue to improve it. In this episode, we're joined by a group of leaders who represent multiple levels of the baseball ecosystem. Steve Nikorak of the Zoned Redhawks and Dominate the Diamond, a coach who works hands-on with young athletes and coaches to build strong foundations rooted in fundamentals and purpose. We're also excited to have Paul Gallo, founder of Gallo Sports Development and formerly with EL1, where he had overseen the Dodgers Training Academy in Thousand Oaks, California. And rounding out the panel is Jeff Sopha from the Kansas City Royals Amateur Development Department, offering insight into how amateur development connects youth baseball to the professional pathway. This conversation is about coaches, organizations, and development models working together with one shared goal: to make youth baseball better for the kids who play it. So let's hit it. How we doing tonight, guys?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Oh, you kidding?
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Jimmy. Merry Christmas, Steve. Paul, good to see you again.
Yeah,
happy Hanukkah to our Jewish faith and happy holidays. Merry Christmas to everybody and great to see everybody again.
Yeah, this is always a pleasure, guys. Whenever we get together, it's always amazing to me how, this thing started 4 years ago. I've only been involved for three, and how this has grown and how we've built these relationships. And let's start with, give me your takeaways, from this year's summit. What did you take away from it?
Yeah, I mean, I always come back from this summit refreshed. I think it's great to be around a group of guys that are so like-minded, guys that want to grow the game, guys that are doing it for the right reasons. I think we're all in that room together because we're trying to grow the game. We're trying to retain the players. We're trying to provide an atmosphere that makes them want to sign up again next year. So for me, it's great to be around guys that all have that same vision from all over the country. And it's also a group of guys that, nobody's got it all figured out yet. We're there to grow and get better. I came back with 5 pages of notes on how we can make our organization and our teams better just from listening to other guys in the room. So it's refreshing. It's kind of a good little buffer in between, in between our normal busy season and then getting ready to go to the big ABCA convention in January.
You know what, Steve? I agree. I think the positivity that you walk away with is bigger than just the notes. And my goodness, there was a lot of great content to take notes on. For me, it was the idea that, when you read through social media or you talk to certain folks, there's a lot of negativity about tournaments or academy ball or just youth sports in general. But what I learned in talking to, as you said, folks from all over the country, there are a lot of people that are doing really good things, and you just don't hear about that enough. You hear a lot about the negative, and listening to you and the other folks in the room talking about what you're doing with your club and hearing stories about even other things that are happening in your communities, I feel like there is an undercurrent of a lot of folks really trying to do something good. And I wish there was more amplification of those stories than there is the amplification of the negative stories. And look, to be fair, there are some things that can be adjusted that can do better, but that's what we're here to do. And the positivity for me is to see that these really powerful people in youth baseball are working together to make that happen. And so I left just feeling really excited about what the future holds because we did leave with some really good ideas to implement.
For me, the culmination of year one when we were in Kansas City, kind of getting to know each other and feel each other out. Year two, down in Georgia, where we got some of the big boys together to at least sit at the same table and talk about some things. And then now year three, that second day when we had Major League Baseball agreeing with what we're doing, saying that we're going to be able to move forward with, hopefully their stamp of approval with, Jeff Passan coming on and talking to us, with the Savannah Bananas coming on to talk to us. That day two, to have those guys to come in that are going to have some really good push, I think was the biggest thing I came out of this year's.
I agree with what you just said, Paul. And when Devin was on, he said something that I think really sums up year four for the summit. And he said he felt like that was the end of the beginning. So, and I thought it was pertinent because, yes, we took the first 4 years and we were kind of feeling everybody out, trying to get everybody together. And I feel like after this year, we've really now, we're at the point now where we're really going to start moving forward. We have a mission. Am I wrong? Do you guys agree?
I agree fully. It's like we have a direction, and we don't just have a direction that we've mapped out in Google Maps. We have some waypoints along the way. And so there's goals, and we've expressed those goals with the right people to help, again, deliver the message. But more importantly, I think we've talked through the ideas enough that we know who the key constituents are that need to be involved. For me, the biggest thing that we talked about, and Steve, we made some videos in the space, talking directly to the parents, helping educate them what this process can look like, should look like, and how they can be more proactive in engaging in that process through their child's development.
I think there's so many people from different backgrounds, right? You've got you've got Perfect Game, you've got PBR, you got some big dogs in the room on the travel side. Then you've got some grassroots organizations. Then you got guys like us kind of in the middle, right? Like we have travel teams, but we work with grassroots leagues, and we also work directly with the parents. So to Jeff's point, getting to shoot the content with the ABCA was a lot of fun, right? It's kind of in our wheelhouse of what we do all the time, but it's giving the parents, and I call them parents because a lot of them are parent coaches, a trusted source. And I think, even when we go to the ABCA convention, it's a lot of high school guys, it's a lot of college guys, a lot of pro guys. So I think opening up that pathway for that, the whole youth initiative to, bring these people into the game at an early age, and then hopefully they become, the next version of the lifelong members of the ABCA.
You have anything to add, Paul?
Everything that, I mean, again, we're like-minded. I mean, every day I pop open my social media and I either see Steve or Duke, and I don't mind it. I sit and listen to what they have to say. I know Duke last week brought up the point that we did about game changer and counting pitches and stuff like that. So having, he's got to be the number one presence that we have out there with this stuff that's going on. So it's preaching to the choir. We're the day one when JJ and Dayton came on and said, listen, in order to get Major League Baseball on board, it's going to be a slow process, but it's there, and these are the people you need to speak with. Again, we can talk, we can be in a direction, but if there isn't a big boy behind us, it's not going to really carry much weight. And I guess what Devin was talking about, that snowball is getting a little bit bigger, that we got Major League Baseball behind us, because we got great minds thinking it out and doing what we need to do. We just need to get it out there and convince people that it's the right thing. And it's not more right because Major League Baseball says it, but it carries more weight. So if that's the way we got to go, that's the way we got to go.
Yeah, I think that, right up there with coaching education, parent education is extremely important. And I think that I know that most of the guys in the room believe that also, because let's face it, they're really the consumer. It's not even the player. It's really the parent. So, we have to educate them, and we have to make the world better for them. Like case in point, one of the points that we talked about at the summit was results over process. And we all understand what that means, but how do we get that to the parents?
I think it can be so overwhelming for a parent, right? Like, who do I trust? Where do I go? To Jeff's point from the beginning, there's so much negativity and there's so much out there on social media. Like, who can I trust? And it's funny because, like, we're going through it right now. We're getting ready to launch a few programs, and we're changing our messaging because we have to talk to moms and dads. We always start off like, hey, coaches, but those moms and dads are in basketball season right now. They're not even thinking about baseball season. They probably don't even know that they're going to be the volunteer coach come, March and April. So I love what we're doing with the whole committee and bringing groups of guys like us together. And then to Paul's point, having the backing of somebody like a Major League Baseball or like an ABCA, to provide those resources to moms and dads, because that's what they are, right? They're not even comfortable calling themselves coach yet. But they are, they're, those guys are the backbone of the future of our game. If we don't provide a good experience, I remember last year in Augusta, I forget the gentleman's name from the United States Tennis Association. He talked about the massive amount of kids that play baseball and softball at the T-ball age. And then it's like falling off a cliff by the time they get to 8. And I remember coming home saying, like, man, that's our niche. Like, how do we at least slow that curve a little bit? And a lot of the times it's because it's boring. They're not having fun. Duke says this all the time, but, in a Major League Baseball game, the ball's in flight for 6 minutes. Of course it's boring if we don't have people with some sort of a baseball background to be able to teach about what's going on from pitch to pitch. What are the middle guys talking about? What are the guys in the dugout talking about? What are you talking to the guy that just came back from hitting? Like, teaching those things that made us fall in love with the game at an early age. The more information and, the more of a positive influence we can put on these parents to teach these kids how to fall in love with the game for the same reasons that we did. It becomes a lot of standing around and it becomes boring. And, I'd want to play soccer and lacrosse too. It's a lot more action.
I think too, Steve, helping parents coaches and players, all three of those communities, understand that your falling in love with baseball can happen at different intervals. You don't have to be elite at 12 to love this game. Somehow recreational baseball, has this kind of negative connotation to it that, if we're not playing for a national team at 13, or we're not ranked on somebody's website, that portends something to your baseball future. And the truth is, it really doesn't. You can have a perfectly enjoyable career of baseball and not flourish till high school. Some guys don't reach their peak till maybe even their senior year. The idea that somehow it's a race to the top is what's permeating social media. It's permeating a lot of messaging. And I think the things that we did and talked about have really risen the idea that recreational baseball is an acceptable path. It's fun, it's enjoyable, it's engaging, and that can look a lot different. I'm not saying that it's better or worse. I'm not saying that travel ball is better or worse. I'm not saying tournament ball is better or worse. I'm saying they're just different paths, and you can float in and out of those as you need to. But I want parents, players, and coaches to understand that there is a place for all of that to coexist under this umbrella of loving baseball. Moreover, where you end up in baseball, nobody's going to determine your ceiling at 12, at 13, at 14. So just love it hard, play the game, and enjoy it. To your point, keep moving, keep learning the game, and ultimately that path will kind of show itself to you.
I got a funny story, and I don't know if this is out of the mouths of babe type of thing, but my sixth grade daughter played softball in the fall. She swam. She just finished her school volleyball season, and now she's rolling into her school basketball season. And my older daughter said, "How's it going? Are you gonna keep doing volleyball? Are you gonna do travel volleyball?" And she said, I really don't want to do one thing too good, because then I'll only have to do that at sixth grade. So it was kind of I was like, wow, the same type of thing. If I do one thing, I'm not going to have fun, because I have to get good at that, because I have to stay with it. I'd rather play all of them at a decent level and still have fun. So it's kind of a funny thing she said.
I think there's a lot of pressure, man. These kids, I have a basketball player who, he wants to play college baseball, so he played summer ball for us, and he's a really good player, but he started varsity for 2 years on the basketball team. And because he didn't go to summer workouts, his basketball coach told him, "Don't even bother trying out. You missed you missed all summer." Like, what kind of a message are we sending these kids? You want to encourage multi-sport athletes until it affects your team. And to these guys' defense, it's like, well, yeah, basketball is the most important thing to that guy. And when it's basketball season, it should be basketball season. But I don't think June, July, and August are basketball season yet. So it's discouraging. It's funny that your daughter said that, but it's discouraging that she feels that, man, I can't get that good. Otherwise, I'm going to feel the pressure to play year round.
But it also shows you how powerful, that message is out there. That, that type of message at such a young age is understood, when, we all know it should be the exact opposite. It should be the way, your daughter looks at it, Paul.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, because what drives that behavior is the comparison. And we all know as coaches, and we talked about this a lot in all of our meetings, that comparison to other players, to other teams, to other organizations it's a no-win situation. The comparison should be to yourself. And somehow through social media messaging, through word of mouth, I don't know, through player rankings that are unnecessary at 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, the message is ranking against one another. And those kids do feel the pressure that I have to commit to this fully at 8, at 9, at 10. And parents who, for all the right reasons, want to see their kids do well and not see them have failure, are willing to invest to make that happen for them. And so it just kind of keeps upping the ante as we go, instead of just saying, hey, let's just sign you up and see how this goes for a while. And if you show some skill as we get older, we can, step you up. But it's not a race. That's the one thing that I think we've all come to the realization is the message is it's a race to the top. And I think we want to change that message. It doesn't have to be a race. There are a lot of paths where everybody can coexist and we can get there.
Right. Well, that's kind of like what, I started this segment off with, was that there's a process. You have to go through the steps. And I'm sure that, all you guys, when you're training players, are taking them through the process. I think that a lot of parents and even players they want to skip steps. They just want to get right to the I don't want to say they want to get right to the good stuff, but they don't want to do the minutia that they need to do, which is part of the process. Do you guys agree with that?
I saw a Ken Griffey Jr. quote, and he said, "You don't have to hit the ball off the tee to make it to the big leagues, but you have to be able to hit the ball off the tee to make it to the big leagues." And I just thought of that when you were saying that, because you're right. Like even now, like we've got middle school kids that want to start going and doing these showcases, but they're not even remotely ready for them yet. So I always go back to this, but it's just, I go home exhausted sometimes because I always try to just send the same message, like, man, you're doing things the right way. Right? Continue to work. Like, you're not going to get better just seeing me once a week. What are we going to do at home? What kind of stuff are you doing in the garage? Yeah, I think it's good and bad. Some of these tournaments, and there's so much excitement around them, and the travel, like that's fun. Like these kids love that and they want to do it, but they can't lose sight of the fact of what you really need to be doing, in the downtime and on your own if you really want to progress. I saw something that was it bothered Duke and I. We were out, at the Little League World Series, and there was a handful of kids that left Williamsport to go to a perfect game showcase down in Florida. And I was like, I couldn't even believe it. I'm like, wait, what? Like, you left Williamsport? That was like the Mecca. That was our dream to go there at 12 years old. And they left to go to a showcase. But that says something about, like, what is that showcase doing? They must be doing something right to make it fun and to make it exciting to where kids would want to leave and go attend an event like that. So to your point, there's got to be a little bit of both, right? I think the rec is huge, but we also have to make sure we're keeping it fun and exciting for those maybe good players or top tier players to want to stay in and be involved in it.
I think too that society today, right? It's such a fast-paced world, and we call it the microwave world, whatever you want to call it. But I think if you ever graphed it out on an x-axis, where you would have this increasing line of the amount of money parents spend over time, right? The number gets bigger and the total dollars, and over time we're spending it. The inverse line crosses it that says this is how much patience parents have to see results. I think right. If I spend money at the store, I want something for that. If I pay money to go to see a movie, I expect to see a movie. You don't want to see the movie being made, right? You don't want to see the food being made if you go to a restaurant. But that is youth sports. That's the process. We're molding and making young athletes, young human beings. You can't skip steps. Your path is going to be different than my path. I can't compare, right? At 12, a showcase, leaving Williamsport, leaving that experience of Williamsport to go to a showcase, nobody's going to do anything with a 12U showcase anyway, other than I can now say I got something for the money I spent, as opposed to shifting your thinking on this to, hey, you know what? I am paying for the memories. I am paying for the excitement my kid has in building love for the game, that experience of playing baseball with his friends, or experience in being in Williamsport. And you know what? At the end of the day, if your experience expectation is a showcase, great. So long as you go into it for the right reasons, not expecting that something at 12U is going to dictate what you look like at 14 or 15 or even 18. Because again, your development curve is up and down. Just physiologically, you're going to develop muscles differently, and testosterone and, mental. So again, I think it's expectations, and I think a lot of it's tied to how much time and money is spent getting kids to play ball.
Steve, something you said really triggered something with me. The first lessons I ever got were saxophone lessons, right? And you go in front of your person, and they're, you're playing your saxophone. You got to go home and practice, because you're not using your practice there to do something that's you're not going to play in front of your instructor or whatever it is. You have to play that. You get to the next page by practicing at home. And kids that expect to get better at baseball just taking their lesson with you, there's no way. And then the second part is that when I brought it up when we were in Texas, was that what is fun, right? What is fun? Where is the fun of sport or music or whatever you're doing? Is it being good at something? Is it playing games on the bench? Where is the fun in order to talk about those things. And I think Bonnie brought it up that, they send out a questionnaire. What does fun mean to you? And, working with what does fun mean to that player or those parents, I think is a big step towards what we're looking to do too.
Hey, Paul, it's interesting that you bring up music because I would argue this to be true for the amateur musician as well as, say, even an orchestral musician at your, top level. If you put a page of music in front of them or a booklet of music, an orchestral movement or a song, they don't just sit down and play that thing start to finish from the very beginning, right? You learn it, you open the first page, you play the first few bars slowly, kind of work through it, and then you play it a little quicker, and then you move on to the next few bars until ultimately you are playing that all the way through. And that's the corollary to learning sports. I just don't jump into high level baseball and become great at it. I got to practice each part. I might have to slow parts down, right, to really get the feel for it and get the movement. And then I move on to the next step. And I wonder if parents, athletes, and together, coaches even, if you stopped and thought about it under the circumstances of learning to read, learning to tie your shoes, nobody just expects you to learn to do those things immediately. Even a toddler learning to walk, right? Like the expectations are going to fall a little bit. It's going to take some time. Why do we expect these immediate results with youth sports and then say, hey, I got to go to a national tournament? Where does that come from? And I think if we could address that and help parents understand, like Steve was saying, like you're saying, Paul and Jimmy, it's the process, and that process looks different for everyone.
I think what you just said, Steve, about, kids leaving Williamsport to go to a showcase at 12 years old, that's like a snapshot of things that are wrong with what's going on in youth baseball. Because, again, you said it, we all know it, that who's looking at a 12-year-old kid at a showcase? Nobody is. However, that experience at Williamsport is something that you will have for the rest of your life. You will never forget it. How could that be pushed aside? So somewhere along the line, the message is skewed. It's screwed. It's just not right.
I think there's a lot of influences out there too. And I think part of the reason why, and I give those guys from, Taylor, the guys from PG, from PBR, so much credit, right? Because they go in there and sometimes they got a bullseye on their back from the rest of the room. They handle it with grace. They're super professional about it. And, you're not blaming them. Right. But I think, social media is troublesome too, because I've got kids now that I've known for 10 years and they still feel as if they're missing out. Right, we have these conversations on a weekly basis of what's good, what's the game plan, what's our process look like over the next 6 months, and they're still feeling that influence or that pressure. Like, well, if I don't go to this, I'm not gonna get seen, or if I don't do this showcase, I'm not. So I think there's just that. They're getting hit from every direction, and I'm thankful that wasn't around when I was a kid, because I would have been one of them for sure. Like, I need to go to this event in Florida in February because all the good players are going to do it. So I think that's part of it too. I think it's the social media influence. It's the events, and in those guys' defense, like if the events are packed, they're not going to not run them. I think it's just a matter of us as coaches educating the kids and parents on what's smart. And I think every part of the country is a little bit different too. Like, we got 1.5 feet of snow on the ground. I'm sure those guys, in Florida are probably out playing baseball a little bit more than we are.
This is where Paul was spot on, right? Like, the beauty of what's happening with the Youth Summit in Texas and in Georgia before that, but us coming together, the group has gotten larger, but it's got really important names in the sport. We have every youth baseball organization, from house ball to big league organizations to travel ball, all saying the same thing. So if we could start with even just a small murmur of a different message that helps people understand exactly what we're saying about it being about memories, about process, about developing human beings, I think it starts to go. We can't allow ourselves to think that our goal is to change this thing in whole all at once, because it won't, right? We can't turn the ship that quick. But we can, as important voices, amplify the right message, get Major League Baseball, as Paul said, to really kind of drive that, and then we echo it. I think if you start now and get younger coaches to start believing in that, get younger parents to start following that message, over time, that snowball continues to grow, and we do change course, or at least, and I don't want to say change course because that makes it sound like everything's wrong, but we do bring the game back to the kids a little bit with a more positive message, a little more positive direction and guidance to parents who desperately, I think, are looking for it.
What we're doing is, like we're trying to preach to the players and the parents, is it's going to take years, just like it does to develop a baseball player. This message is going to have to be developed over years.
Yeah.
So I'm just going through a couple of things that were on the agenda that maybe we should talk about a little bit. And one of the things that was on there was, do we need more games or we need more practice? And what do you guys think?
I wrote down the quote. I forget who it was, but they said there's too much organized baseball and not enough unorganized baseball. I don't know who that quote was from. I gotta look it up. It's in my binder that I came back, with. Kids love games. They want to play games. They want to go out there and compete. Coaches love practice because that's our time to develop and train. So I'm a little bit in the middle. Do I think there needs to be games year round? Absolutely not. We push our guys, and we have a facility that needs to be packed during basketball season. But we'll constantly push kids, go play football, go play basketball. We'll see you, in February. There needs to be a balance for sure. I think there's so many organizations out there that don't even practice. There's travel organizations that we play against right down the road that they play their tournaments on the weekend and they don't practice during the week. So we'll have our 2 practices, and then we'll lose guys to that organization because they're traveling and doing more fun events, and their schedule looks a little bit cooler than ours. So they love to play. They want to play in games, they want to play in tournaments, and we just have to be smart in how we schedule ours. Right, we'll put off weekends on purpose in there in case maybe we get rained out, or in case we play 3 weekends in a row and we want to shut the guys down, and then we find out our kids are guest playing for somebody else because we're off that weekend. So, it's funny because we go on these talks and it always comes back to parent and player education and just talking through things. And we have a player parent meeting where we'll have that conversation. Like, guys, look, we're playing 6 events this summer. We have an off weekend in June and an off weekend in July on purpose. And here's why. And then they'll still go do it. So it's frustrating. But yeah, the kids love the games and we love the practices, and you got to practice. You have to.
Yeah, I think that if I remember correctly, at the 12, 13, maybe 11, 12, 13 year age, USA Baseball is like, I think it's 3 practices for every 1 game. All right, so that's 75% practice. I can assure you that there's most travel organizations, and again, I don't know, Steve, if you guys do it different, but that are not practicing that much.
Well, I'll say this. Oh, sorry, Steve. Go ahead, bud.
No, I was just gonna say they don't practice at all. There's a lot of they'll have like winter workouts and stuff, but once the season starts, and they just play on the weekends. And I get it. Sometimes they're playing 6-7 games on a weekend, which I think is a whole nother conversation to have, but. I don't understand. How do you have a team and not practice? We got to work through different things. It doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, go ahead, Jeff. Sorry, I cut you off there.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, back to the process, learning. All right, so let's just talk about the discovery portion of baseball. When we're the younger kids, we're not skilled. We don't have motor coordination. We don't have the baseball IQ. We don't have the thinking process down to be able to successfully have a quality game. And that's why it's not fun. We keep talking about not fun. Well, yeah, if every at bat turns into a walk, which then becomes next pitch a double, then the next pitch we're on 3, and the next pitch we've run home. There's no excitement to that game. Guys are in the outfield doing nothing. The infielders are kicking dirt around. The idea that we could gamify practice and bring games into the learning process, I think for the younger ages to begin with, certainly I think helps with the idea that we don't need to go play games. Like we could gamify the practice with drills and, consequence type stuff within practice, candy or baseball cards, gum, whatever it may be, to amplify the learning. And I think that satisfies that craving. I get it. As we get older, we're going to play some more games, but we could start from that perspective of learn through repetitive drills and fun. And David Klein does an amazing job with this, with his legend stuff, a lot of creative new ideas. I've seen your guys' videos, a lot of really cool drills. You could gamify it. As we get older, follow the model. Maybe we play a few games, but that doesn't mean we have to go play 6 in a weekend. And I say that knowing that that's the older kid model, and it keeps getting younger and younger, it would seem. But now we start getting into questions about the health of the arms as we do that. And again, I'm not an expert on all the arm care things. Maybe kids don't throw hard enough that's as big of a deal, but I'll let that aside for the experts. I still think you need to slow the game back down. We're learning the sheet of music, right? I have to learn how to do things and then practice it at pace in practice with my teammates so that the game becomes easier. If I go right to the game, that environment is so stressful, so chaotic, I don't have retention from the learning in that, right? And I'm emotional about it. So any key learnings I may have had, I've washed it away because I'm emotional and I don't get the impact of understanding it. Whereas in practice, I could speed it up, have it game-like, and then we could stop right there and we could talk about it. And then I can create a mnemonic that the child can remember, and now it's a learning process. So if it happens in a game, it's easily recalled. So I am a strong believer in those practices, Steve. I know Paul is too, but you got to have 2 or 3 practices just to get through the things you need to know to be able to have success in the game. Nobody wants to go keep playing games and getting beat. You got to learn the drill first.
Yeah, and going back to what you said early, Jimmy, about, get to the good stuff, right? The games for the kids are the good stuff, right? Whereas the practices, I was just, again, I sit here with you guys and it comes to my head, but there aren't many sports like baseball where we can slow it down to where a coach is hitting a fungo. A coach is throwing batting practice. The coach is the person that can get behind that practice and repeat it. Baseball, you can slow it down, which is maybe more boring for a kid to, talking about gamifying stuff, football, basketball, that stuff you do, that team is on the floor in order to make you better when you're slowing that stuff down. Whereas baseball, good for the good or the bad, the coach can do those things without the opposing team being there. So, just something that popped in my head as you guys were talking about it.
Paul, that's where like the content that Steve and Duke put out, and even the stuff we put out when we were in Texas, you could really gamify a lot of baseball. And I think that's something that's lost on some younger coaches and even parents in watching a practice. They think it's about the game, and the message we're trying to push is, no, it's also about the practice. We can amplify practice, right? We can create chaos. We can amplify speed. We can really make this a growth opportunity because that doesn't happen in the game. People think the learning comes from the game. The learning is the test. Right? It's not what you did in the classroom. It's not the homework you did. That's the important stuff so that you could do well on the test. And I think that's what's lost is learning, whether it's music in the classroom or whatever. You've got to do that pre-work. And I just feel like everybody's looking for the easy button, the quick way to winning tournaments.
Well, I think it's become where it's more of a entertainment thing, okay? And that would be fine if that's all you wanted to do. You wanted to go watch a kid run around the field, whether he knows how to play the game or not, and, do all that stuff. But the problem I see comes in when, they're going through these, games, these tournaments, whatever they're doing, and they may not be trained, and people are beating them up. Parents are beating them up. Coaches are beating them up because they really don't know how to play the game because they didn't practice. So what I'm trying to say is that if it was only for entertainment only and everybody just clapped when a mistake was made and they laughed about it and they joked and it was all entertainment, that would be one thing, okay? But people take this seriously and they don't want to go through those steps that they have to go through so that they can be successful during those games.
I think as coaches too, just listening to all 3 of you guys talk there, we have to do a good job. And you mentioned, Jeff, about gamifying practice, making sure that practice is fun. And we're at I know, Jimmy, we saw you at the Garden State Coaches Clinic, and Dan Skirka, the Murray State head coach, did an entire presentation on building culture through competition. are building culture through competition. And all they do at practice is compete and they have fun. There's no like throwing, everything's a point system. The way they throw, the way they take BP in the cage, the way they run the bases, it's all competitions. And they build these little mini shells of mini teams. And the kids are out there grinding and working and competing. And I think sometimes, when coaches, you go out and it's one guy hitting and 11 guys watching. And then there's a line of 12 kids standing at shortstop and they're in a vertical line. So, no, everybody's goofing off in the back. Of course it becomes boring, man. But if you can be creative and create competition and create fun and excitement and prizes. I don't know about you guys. Like, I have no clue if my Little League coach knew anything about baseball. I don't. I don't remember what he taught me. I don't remember where I batted in the order. I don't remember anything about the games, but I do remember he worked for M&M Mars and we get Snickers bars after, if we won the competition. Like, that's the kind of stuff you remember. And, when you talk about gamifying it or creating, like, I came home with so many notes from Coach Skirka's presentation of like, you can really have fun at practice. And that's where the kids are going to fall in love with it, and then as coaches, you mentioned the parents and the overwhelming feeling of all this pressure. Like, that's our time to take a step back, like, go play, go compete. And me on the back of my note card, I'll have 37 things that I want to make sure we cover next week at practice, rundowns, bunt coverages, first and thirds, pop fly communication, whatever it is. But my practice plan's complete. And now I take that, and how can I make it fun and something engaging where the kids are locked in and exhausted after 90 minutes? And then we go attack it next week. And you step back, you sit in the dugout, and you let them play.
Steve, I don't know if you realize how powerful the messages that you just said. You were a professional baseball player, but you have no idea if your youth baseball coach taught you anything right or wrong about baseball. But what you do know is how much he built the love and the enjoyment of the game in you. Because at some point in your baseball career, it became work, right? It became something a little more than just fun. But your early experience and the memories and the excitement, I'm guessing when practice was over, there was a bunch of guys going, oh, that's it? We're done? Right? Like, you wanted to come back. And that's what's missing, right? We're trying to hit the shortcut, but we're trying to hit the easy button to get to the level. And we're forgetting to build the love and the passion. I get it. Some guys get there early, but for young coaches and for parents with kids starting out, that is so much more important than how good you are as a player. It's how did Steve get a little better? Did he love the game tremendously so that he would play the next day, that he couldn't wait to get home from school to go to practice? That's what matters. And how you go about that as a coach is everything.
You got anything to add to that, Paul?
No, I mean, everything was right there. You talk about practice versus games and making everything, the game is the test, right? That the practice is the classroom. So going back to having fun again, Steve and Duke, I mean, the fact that they have the best product out there and are still trying to make it better and get better things out of it is good enough for me to know that we're on the right path to what we're doing.
So one of the things that we talked about with the other shows that we did was, and we kind of touched on it a little bit when we were talking, is that we have people from all different, corners of the baseball world. And what's really interesting is we get together and we're able to debate and discuss things, and there's no animosity. Everybody's very professional. Everybody's very respectful. What do you guys think about that?
Our leader, obviously, Rob brought together people who he respected, who he knew, everything was going together. I think, bring it even with Taylor. I mean, you bring in a USSSA guy who's part of our youth committee, right? You're not bringing in somebody that's going to create huge waves. I mean, we still speak our mind, but we're a lot of like-minded people. And for, us to build what we had for the past, the first three, to bring in the other people, we couldn't be fighting amongst ourselves and hope to go in the same direction, because and Rob did an amazing job bringing those people together that he's known through the years in order to be on that path. So,
Steve, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. I think, when we were down there, Duke and I were all excited and we put something out on social media about, the weekend and things we were trying to accomplish and people we got to listen to. And I got like 3 or 4 messages on Instagram from other guys like us in the Northeast that want to be involved in it now. And then I followed up with Rob and I reached out to Brownlee and I was like, are we still looking for more people? And I think that's how, Paul, like you said, the snowball is starting to gain some traction and it's getting bigger because now more people that care about the game the way we do want to be involved in this youth committee. And, you know, hopefully it gets to a point where the annual youth summit is massive. I don't know what we got, like 30, 40 guys in the room, and there's already maybe 3 or 4 more that are gonna be joining next year. I talked to Ryan again at the Garden State Clinic, and the more people that can get involved, and push the same message that we all push, I think the better off we are, as a coalition, and the better off it is for youth baseball.
It's interesting thinking about that room. The greatest coaches aren't the greatest coaches because they understand offense and defensive strategy and they have a great library of drills. They're great coaches because they never stop wanting to learn and improve the game. And I do say this with the utmost respect for anybody that puts on a ball cap and gets into a dugout with a bunch of kids. But I do find that the younger coaches aren't quite as open to new information and dialogue. There's more debate than there is listening and learning. And in that room, the number of years of experience and coaching credential, how patient and listening and open the sharing is about information and the learning, that's what makes those coaches so great. And I think that's what's important about what we've done there, Jimmy, is that everybody in that room is not wanting to get better just because they want to be a better coach. They want to be a better coach for the game, for the players. And again, for parents or other coaches listening, that's the path yourself to getting better is go hang out with other coaches and ask questions and learn and listen to what their approach might be or their thoughts and ideas are and be open to that. Parents, if you're looking for the next best thing, trust me, it's not out there. The one thing in that room, I'll tell you that every single coach, if you ask them, will tell you they haven't cracked the code on coaching expertise. We're all striving to get better. If you've got a great coach that follows process and is learning and trying to get better alongside his players, stay with that coach, whether he's rec, travel, tournament, whatever it is. It's all about that coach and about how that coach connects with your child. So for this room specifically, to answer your question, Jimmy, I'll just tell you, that's the heart of this room is that everybody in there is genuine and puts aside all the ego to say, I can do better for my athletes and for baseball in general.
I think you hit the nail right on the head. I believe that that's what it is everybody, we all have one common goal is to make everything better. And again, we've all been around long enough to know what the pitfalls are, what the problems are, and we're kind of trying to funnel that with all of the major players, which is really important. Because you're not going to get anywhere if, you took all travel ball guys and you put them together and they're trying to find solutions. Well, they're only going to find certain solutions. But because it's such a diverse, what's the word I'm looking for? Just that we have everybody from every corner of baseball there. And we're all working towards a common goal. And again, that's why I think that happens because, I believe that it's because everybody is there is a professional at what we do.
Yeah, great. And two of my favorite movies are Groundhog Day, right? Which happens to me by birthday. But you go back to Bill Murray in how many days was he in that same spot? By the end, before he realized, well, you know what? Maybe I'll try to get better at something every single day and try to be a positive influence in that town and do it every single day. And then, you go back and you can look at yourself because you go back and see a college game where you got those young coaches who just finished playing and they're coaching first base or coaching the hitters. And you realize that, again, what you said, Jeff, they don't know what they don't know, right? You become a better coach when you start to realize what you don't know. And then the other movie I love again is Good Will Hunting, and he's in that Harvard bar and he's talking to the grad student and he's saying, This week you're talking about this philosopher. Next semester you're going to be talking about this philosopher, and it's going to take a good 10 years before you get your own ideas about what you need to do, which is what a good coach does, right? When you start to learn what you don't know, you become a better coach. So
in the midst of all that, you got Steve Nikorak taking 5 additional pages of notes to take back to his athletes, right? Like, boom, that's it. Yeah.
I got notes from listening to you guys today. I think,
Right?
we've said it the whole show, right? Like none of us have it all figured out. I remember when I first started coaching, and I didn't even do it because I thought I had it all figured out. I wanted to help, and I was fresh out of pro ball. I thought I had all this information. And then I heard a presentation from Kevin Wilson, a guy from the Philadelphia area that's been coaching for a long time. And he referred to it as power coaching. And I took a big step back and I said, man, like if I was 10 years old, would I have just, really understood or maybe soaked up what I just said? And I had to, so just to your point, Paul, about constantly learning and trying to grow. I mean, there's not a day that goes by that Duke and I don't bounce ideas off one another, or, going back to what you said, Jimmy, about the different perspectives in that room. I think that's what makes it great, because you're hearing similar issues that other organizations might go through, similar problems, or maybe some things that they're doing really well that we might not be doing well. But it just gives you that whole well-rounded picture of what youth baseball does look like outside of maybe Bridgewater, New Jersey for us.
Yeah, and I also think that because we have so many different people there, that, the perfect games of the world can hear what travel organizations don't like about what they do, or maybe just something that they do that they could do better. And, that goes all over the place, where it makes people say, oh, geez, I really didn't think that was an issue with youth baseball, but let's talk about it. Okay. And, again, it's only going to bring us to a better place. One of the things that we kind of just touched on there a little bit, and I don't want to lose it, is, and I don't know if we talked about it that much this year, but we have talked about it in the past, is coaching education. Okay, so where do we go in that direction, to help educate amateur youth coaches better than we do now?
Well, we've got our coaching development subcommittee as part of this youth group, and Steve, Duke, myself, kind of driving some of that. We Steve, I'll just, man, I don't want to sound too conceited here, but we really put some good content together to help young coaches, and appreciate all of you guys for stepping in and being actors in those videos. I think it's really about sticking to the message, right? And that is that it is a process, and to understand the process. Gamification of practices, age-appropriate skill development. And I think the important thing, and Paul's mentioned it several times, we've got Steve and Duke's content. We got David's content. There are content providers out there. We got the ABCA content. Here in Kansas City, we've got our RADS content for the Royals. Helping curate that content and make it easily accessible and digestible for the volunteer coach, that they can quickly view it, get their content, get their practice plans, helping those young coaches that want to learn, take it to the next level, and help amplify for their players the excitement of the game. That's the goal. I think it's going to take a lot of approaches, and it's going to take a lot of coaches wanting to get better, but I think they are out there. We just have to help them find their way through the noise that's in social media, like Steve was mentioning.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of people doing things, I think, for the right reason too. And I think for a lot of these moms and dads and youth coaches, it can be overwhelming. I think I find myself sometimes looking at videos and I'm like, man, am I even teaching this right? Like, this guy's saying something the complete opposite of what I might be talking about. But I think for these moms and dads and volunteer coaches, that's our whole mission behind Dominate the Diamond. We're happy to share as many videos with the ABCA and be part of that coaches education group. I thought the videos we shot in Austin were great. But I think that it's constantly just putting out good information in bite-sized pieces in language that these parents will understand. That's the key. They don't want to sit down and watch a 35-minute presentation on hitting, but they do want to know what they can take little Mikey into the backyard and maybe practice on an off day, and making things relatable to them, making it fun, all the things we're talking about today. But I think the ABCA is absolutely a trusted source. And I think, us, all working together to provide content using all the things I was just talking about, right? Short and sweet, easy to understand. Guys, you got guys like Billy Wagner in there. He's a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer. And then you've got, all of us from different parts of the country with the kids and the parents' best interest at heart, all sharing information and sharing drills. And, a lot of it wasn't even necessarily the X's and O's of how to play baseball. It was how to communicate, how to run an effective practice, how to hit a fungo, the importance of being a good role model and a mentor. Because I think, it's funny, we run these coaches clinics. We'll have hundreds of coaches come in. Or, we're getting ready. We're going to be going down to Texas next year. We're going to Virginia next month. And, you've got 100 moms and dads and, they're rushing from the office to practice and they're overwhelmed. They might not even know how to coach baseball or softball, but, they might be a good role model. They might be a good mentor. For some of these kids, it might be the highlight of their day going to their 90-minute baseball practice. So what can I do during that time? Or maybe, jotting something down on the back of a napkin to make this a fun and enjoyable experience to where this kid wants to play baseball next year. I think that's the goal. I know that's a little bit long-winded of an answer, but, I think we've got the right people, sending the same message to where people won't get lost in the depths of YouTube, trying to figure out how to coach a baseball team. It's hopefully one trusted resource, and that's what we try to do. I know David does it. You guys do it, Jeff. There's a lot of good people out there. It's just helping push those moms and dads and volunteers to the right people.
Great point. And what Rob says, right, is they're facilitators, right? The parents are facilitators to that person. And it doesn't matter if it's baseball, basketball, music, directing a play, whatever it is at school. They're facilitators to help those kids enjoy what they're doing. And, off the subject a little bit there, but the content is there, right? And hopefully Major League Baseball can push it to where to look for the right content to put their stamp of approval on what we're doing. And, it's great. The more that's out there that's trusted, hopefully it's the easier path for them to find it. They don't have to find a guy in his blue jeans teaching tip your hip up in the air to hit the ball straight up to the net. I won't go anywhere farther than that, but it's there.
I think that's exactly it, Paul, is that Steve said it best, right? There's the mom or the dad that it's 3:30 in the afternoon. They're looking at their watch and they go, oh gosh, we got practice in an hour. What do I have to do? Right? Every coach that volunteers understands what's at stake. I think parents, coaches, us in the room all have the best interest of those athletes in mind. We all want to do the best thing we can for them. Nobody's trying to, go out and purposely do something wrong, but there are certain drills or certain videos you see that just don't apply to your 7-year-old or your 10-year-old or your 12-year-old or even your high schooler, right? If it's a professional athlete doing a drill, it still doesn't apply to your high school guy. And I think parents and coaches through this learning path are trying to cut through that and say, what does matter for my guys? And somebody help me understand that, because I've got a half hour to get my gear on and get to practice and leave my desk and be ready to go before these kids show up. And I think, Jimmy, to your question is, that's what we have to do. We have to help that mom or dad get something done in a half hour before they split from the office or from home to get to practice and run something meaningful enough for their kids that A, it creates memories, B, it creates a little bit of skill, and C, it has that moment at the end of practice when kids go, oh, it's over already, and they're excited to come back the next time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest hurdle that we have with educating coaches is making them understand that they have to do at least a base level of education. And we've touched on it several times during this conversation, is that it's not about the X's and O's, okay? Because the X's and O's are pretty, I'll say, standard. You know what? They'll vary from coach to coach, a little here, a little there, but for the most part, they're standard X's and O's of the game. Learning how to coach and how to be a coach and how to care about your players, how to build your players up, how to make them better people, okay? That's what coaching is, okay? And then you throw the X's and O's in there, okay, and now you're a baseball coach. But you could be a good coach and learn the X's and O's of basketball and go out and coach basketball. Because a coach is a coach. The X's and O's change.
I'll be honest with you. Probably no surprise to you guys in this room because I'm assuming you had similar experience. I was terrible my first few years out. I mean, I really thought I knew what I was doing, and I didn't have that trust moment with my athletes. I didn't have the connections with the parents, and it was really more driven by the game and how to play it. And unfortunately, I also, even though we go through this coaching development conversation, I still wonder, is there that period of time that coaches just have to go through that and kind of figure it out? And maybe some coaches are luckier. They get to be an assistant coach for a while first, and they learn it from an experienced head coach. I think that's something we should talk about in our coaching development, Steve, is what is that pathway? Because sometimes you don't get that luxury. Sometimes it's the league sending out an email going, hey, parents, I got 13 kids here signed up. If we could get one more coach, we'll have a team, right? And then a week goes by, nobody answers. And another week they send the email out again. And then another week they send it again. And finally, some mom or dad raises their hand and goes, okay, I'll do it. And then they're like, oh gosh, what did I just get into? So you don't get that learning experience. It's trial by fire, quite literally. But I do believe you got to go through that knothole a little bit to have that experience to figure it out, which, by the way, is just an aside, not altogether different from going through the knothole as an athlete. You got to play it out a little bit before you get a little better, right? There's no shortcut.
About, I don't know, it was probably about 5 years ago, I wrote an article for Inside Pitch Magazine, just what you said, the pathway to becoming a coach. And it goes through those steps. And it was all it was all about what I had experienced as I, came up coaching and learning. And, you're so right, Jeff, because it's like we said before, there's a process to it. There is a learning curve to it. You can't just go in there like a bulldog and not educate yourself and get better and better and better, just like a player. Coaching a player is, that path is very similar.
Well, two things. One, you got to send me that article now because I want to see which steps I've missed. And seriously, I would love to read it. And two, I go back to what I said earlier. Like, my favorite time is when I'm sitting at the table with Steve and Duke or having a phone call with Paul or yourself. It's just sharing the love of the game and the stories. And, Paul and I had this great opportunity. We got to coach together in Japan and talking baseball the whole time. Even though we weren't talking X's and O's, well, I think we probably were talking X's and O's, but it was just that engagement, just the sharing of the love of the game. I think I got a little better just that week we were in Japan. And Steve, the few days that we were together, 4 days we were together in Texas, just the talking through it. You take a little bit from every coach with you. I mean, I think every coach is full of holes as we share with players and with coaches. It's, we can't retain water. It just drips out of us because we give so much of ourselves away. But you have to go through those experiences. And as a young coach, I'll keep saying this. The best thing you can do is be around other coaches. If you're a young, rec coach or travel ball coach, go find the high school coach in your area and call them up. Can I come visit a practice? Can I watch you? Hey, after practice, do you have 5 minutes just to chat a little bit, ask some questions? And you'll be amazed just that transfer of knowledge, how much that elevates you as a coach.
Jimmy, at the Garden State Clinic, there was something that Al Leiter said that I thought was awesome. He was presenting on old school versus new school. He was trying to marry the two of them together, find some sort of balance. But he said, don't diminish the importance of the impact that you're going to have on your athletes. And he went back to some of his coaches when he was a young player and kind of said what I said about not really knowing how much they might have taught him, but the impact that they had on him at a young age. We talk a lot about connection before correction, right? Asking questions. That's one thing I've tried to pride myself on lately, is really getting to know the individual. And I think that's the missing piece a lot of the times with the first-time coaches. And I definitely had that missing piece when I first started because I wanted to help. Maybe my delivery was kind of crappy at the time because, I was just overdoing it. But I think taking a step back and developing that relationship and that trust to where when it is time to either hold them to a standard or make sure they do things the right way or maybe make a correction in the batter's box or out at shortstop, then it's easy, right? Then it's like, they trust you at that point. But yeah, I mean, fully wholeheartedly agree with what you guys are saying there.
I think too, I think Jeff, during our Major League Summit 2 years ago, we talked about Major League Baseball said that they pass out these free lessons to PE teachers for baseball and softball, and PE teachers are intimidated by teaching the game of baseball and softball because they don't have the expertise. And if our PE teachers are intimidated with free lesson plans and free equipment and free stuff, again, how do parents feel walking into that whole thing, trying to make them feel more comfortable teaching the game, and teaching the game without teaching the game, right? You don't necessarily have to go in there and play a game. You could go in there and do a relay race around the bases to teach them how to run the bases. And you're not playing baseball or softball, but you're teaching the bases. How many times can we throw the ball back and forth without dropping the ball? And again, you're teaching the game without teaching the game, and try to take away that intimidation factor of baseball and softball that seems to be there.
Well, I think that that's one of the things that Steve and Duke do really well is their videos pretty much simplify everything, and they're short. It's very easy for somebody to look at one of those drills and take it to their practice with them. And, it's powerful. Rather than going through these elaborate things and making it seem difficult, I hate to use this phrase, but you're dumbing it down so that it's easy for everybody. I mean, I take your drills and your videos all the time, and I say, I'm using that. And
I think simplifying is better than dumbing down. They're simplifying to where the average person can understand it, right? You're still teaching the same thing, but as coaches, we learn how to simplify things in order to teach to 57 years the same thing.
Right.
And I don't think as much, the better we get at it, the better it is for us to explain what we're teaching in simple terms that the most amount of people can understand it.
Yeah.
It's one thing.
Jimmy, we spent as part of the coaching development subcommittee the last year, starting even before last year's convention, interviewing coaches and sending out Google Forms to get feedback. And consistently, the message we hear is 3 to 4 minute videos, 5 minutes on the outside. People are pressed for time. So it's got to be short and sweet and to the point. It has to be relatable and understandable, to Paul's point about, for a large number of people. Coaches that are more advanced know how to find that information. The early adopters are looking to not necessarily become experts at the moment, but to facilitate a practice through a quick assimilation of information. And they'll tell you, I don't have a lot of time. Those 3 to 4 minute videos are the sweet spot from the coaches we've heard. The ability to select videos based on the current needs of the team and have that correlate directly to a practice plan is of significant importance to them. And I think, Steve, again, I know you've been lots of kudos here, but you do that well. David does that well. We're trying to do that with our own ABCA content here. But that is the goal with the coaching development. Make it accessible, relatable, short, to the point, and give them something when they're done with it they can walk out to the practice field with and go, boom, I need these things, I'm going to do this. And they can give their assistant coaches guidance and direction as well.
All right, so we're gonna start winding this down. So I have a few more things that I want to go over, and I know the answer to this question, but I want to ask you guys. I want to get it in your words. What responsibility do leaders have to communicate all of these type of changes, the coaching education, the parent education, and all of the stuff that we discuss at the summits? What responsibility do leaders have to communicate this?
Well, I believe that room is full of people that are willing to take on the mantle of stewards of baseball. And everybody in that room within their own community, I believe, is already doing that, Jimmy. I believe through the production of their videos, Steve and Duke and others, Devin, David, they're doing that. What we're doing with Royals Amateur Development, what Paul's doing with his group, what you're doing with this podcast right now is we're putting this information out and trying to get it out to as many thoughtful ears as possible and eyes. And I think, through coaching clinics that all of us do, through player camps and clinics, again, if we get the message out enough, certainly at some point it starts to stick and build a little bit of traction. So I think if we come together in that room as self advocates for baseball, and we see ourselves as stewards, and we take that back to our communities and try and build that growth in our communities, that's what we're doing as leaders. That makes us leaders for baseball leaders in our community. And I think that is what is going to happen. Do we need help, like Paul said, from Major League Baseball and Pony and Babe Ruth and Little League? Sure. But I think that's exactly what's happening. And I would look at all 40 people in that room and say, that's 40 leaders setting aside ego to be joint stewards of the game.
Anybody else have anything on that? I was going to say, I think you kind of summed it up pretty good there, Jeff.
Pretty good there, Sopha.
Thanks, man.
Okay, so the last thing that I want to go to is whether it be a coach or a parent, what's one message that you want them to hear from you, your message to them?
I think as a parent and a coach, it's going to be hard. I was at a softball tournament on Sunday, and a 14U dad had his daughter in the dugout, and he was like, you got to do it. You got to do it. And then he came up to the stands, and the mother was over my shoulder, and he said, I can't talk to her. You got to talk to her. And I said to him, I said, she won't be the last daughter that doesn't listen to her father, right? At the end of the day, coaching your kids is going to be the hardest thing. And obviously you're coaching 99% of these time, these parents are coaching their kids' teams. So you gotta be aware that, don't ruin your parent-child relationship by being that coach that gets it's a hard balance. Steve talks about balance, the balance of that parent versus the coach. And I don't remember where it was, taking off your hat, in the car, and now your dad putting on their hat, now you're the coach. Learn the balance between where that parent begins and it ends, and that coach begins would probably be my number one thing.
That's good, Paul. Yeah, that was. I know Duke always talks about that car ride home because he's coached all four of his kids, and that finding that balance between the two. I think for us, it's about like the recruiting, and maybe recruiting is the wrong word because we're not actively recruiting, but it's helping leagues acquire new coaches and making moms and dads and volunteer coaches feel comfortable taking on the title of coach for the first time. You mentioned before, Paul, facilitating, right? You don't necessarily have to know the game, and that could come with time. But we feel, our platform and what we try to do is provide information to these moms and dads to help grow and retain these players. Because again, I'll go back to the ABCA from 2 years ago, the Youth Summit. The drastic drop off by the time they get to 8 years old it's scary, right? And we all talk about, growing this game and educating coaches, but it starts with those volunteers. Every year there's, I don't know the number, hundreds of thousands of new T-ball players, and, moms and dads that their kids get to that T-ball age. And I've got buddies of mine that call me up that played college and pro baseball. They're like, dude, how the heck do you handle 12 6-year-olds? It's different. So I think, providing them with the information and the resources and to take the field with confidence, whether it's the structure or the organizational, the three biggest obstacles that these people face is they don't have time, they don't have much knowledge, and then they're afraid of being criticized. So they're like, screw it, I'm not going to coach, right? Everybody's complaining about how bad the coach is. So I think it's letting these people know that you can coach and you don't have to know it all at the youth level. But how many of your 12 kids signed up to play the next year? That's a true test of a successful season as a youth coach.
I guess I would want parents and coaches, the message I would give them, I would want them to understand this. When your player starts or the athletes that you start coaching begin this game to when they end it, it's a long process, but it goes quicker than you think. And in a moment, it's over. And I would hate for any parent or coach to not step back, breathe a little bit, and enjoy the memories, enjoy the ride, enjoy the little things that comes with this, and make sure that that experience you're creating for your athletes, or if you're lucky enough to be coaching your own kid, that we don't make it about the outcome. We don't make it just about the game, that we're stopping off for burgers and ice cream once in a while, that we have these moments where if we're traveling for a tournament, we stop off and go do something else unrelated to the game. Find it within you to remember they're just still kids, and for them this is just fun and excitement. Of course they want to win. We play the game to win, right? We train to get better, but we want to enjoy that experience. So don't get so caught up in the outcome that you forget to enjoy that process, because the process can be more than just the practices. It can be all that goes with it, the hotel experience or the weekend experience, whatever it is. If you're staying local, the fun stuff you do after the game, enjoy those, because sooner or later that all goes away and you don't have it anymore. So make the most positivity out of that you can. It goes a lot faster than you think. And I'm speaking from experience, folks.
Yeah, and I was just going to say what you just said, Jeff, from speaking from experience, having gone through it. The last time my son played baseball, well, he plays now in a men's league, but, when he was playing travel ball was 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago. We never talk about remember this game or remember that game or remember the time I did. We don't talk about that. We talk about remember the time you did this and we were laughing hysterical. Remember the time we were in the hotel and we did this, and that's really what it all boils down to. And let's face it, there's very few that's not what it's about. There's very few that go on to higher things. So it has to be all about fun and the experience.
Yeah, look, 6% of high school varsity baseball players go on to college. It's just a small number, right? I would hate for anybody to look back and think that they missed a moment to really connect. And again, I'll add to my message just this. Coaches, remember this. In amateur baseball, we are in the memory-making business. We're not in the professional baseball player-making business. If you can orient yourself around creating memories for your athletes, you are going to be a coach that Steve Nikorak remembered. Just loved the game and wanted to keep playing, and look where it got him. That's my goal as a youth coach. Keep them in the game, keep them loving it, and the rest of it will take care of itself, and they'll end up where they were supposed to be.
So, everything that we've talked about, and this is now the third episode with the coaches that were at the Youth Summit, I think that all of the stuff that we did kind of highlights exactly why the Youth Baseball Summit exists. We bring people together, we challenge assumptions, we collaborate on solutions that put the kids first. So I want to just thank you guys. I mean, you guys being friends, it means the world to me. I mean, the relationships that we have, that we've built over, a short period of time, really, it really means a lot, guys, and I just want to thank you for everything.
Love you, Jimmy. Appreciate you having us on.
Thanks for having us, Jimmy.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Jimmy. It was great.
Thanks, guys, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. What better way to wrap up the 3 insights from the Youth Baseball Summit episodes than this one with Jeff and Paul and Steve? I mean, all 3 episodes were great. There's so much information out there, and there's a reason why these people are involved with these youth summits. I mean, all of them, every single one of them brings something to the table from every aspect of youth baseball. And I feel that the more that we can get these kind of messages out there to people, for people to listen and to hear and to study about what we actually should be doing, then it's a win-win for everybody. My biggest takeaway from all 3 episodes is, the old saying that I learned a real long time ago, be where your feet are, okay? And, I kind of took that to heart years ago, and I usually don't like to talk about myself, but I think that it's important right now to understand, because even Jeff had mentioned it when I said about an article that I had written and that he wanted to read it, because every coach's journey starts somewhere. And, mine started out long time ago in, the early 1980s. And like almost every other coach that I've talked to, our beginnings, our very first start in coaching youth baseball was a disaster. And it should, I don't want to say it should be, but it makes sense that it's a disaster because we really don't know what we're doing. Now, that doesn't apply to everybody. There are some guys that get into coaching that have, have had prior experience and they do know what they're doing. But for the most of us, I would like to say that we probably are flying by the seat of our pants. So if we remember to be where our feet are and be the best that we can be for that level that we're coaching, well, then everything else is going to kind of fall into place. If you're doing the right things, if you're helping players, if you're connecting with players, if, everything that goes along with it, you will move up that ladder. And, I can't say it enough that I'm living proof of that. I mean, when I was coaching T-ball way back when, I never thought that I would ever be a high school coach, let alone a varsity high school coach. And, I'm not ready to announce it yet, but there's another step coming in the ladder that, again, I would have never thought it was possible. But because I feel that it's so important to study and to learn and to understand that we don't know everything and that we need to keep learning, well, if I tried to be the best I was at every level, it kind of shows that, yes, it'll take you where you need to go. I mean, maybe you don't want to go anywhere. Maybe you want to stay where you are. So just, learn what you can to be the best at where you are. All right, enough of me rambling. I want to thank everybody that came on for these 3 episodes. They're great people. I love them all to death. I'm honored to be friends with them. And, again, you can listen to all 3 of them and you can see why they are who they are. And, I hope everybody learned something. So, if you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Visit the website at thectbshow.net. Listen to your favorite episodes and please leave us a review. You can also reach out to the show on social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and get this, the old man has finally got us on TikTok. Keeps me young. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover, please drop us an email at clearingthebases@gmail.com. Your feedback helps us bring you the best content and reach more people in the baseball community just like you. And also, let me know if you'd like to be a guest. Until then, coaches and players, keep practicing, stay positive, and remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you on the next one.